co-treasurers.
Hold on, I just want to let everyone know that we are now recording. Continue.
Chris Sandor, one of the co-treasurers.
And Mrs. Marie-Helene Attwood, and the other co-treasurer, and the parent of an 11th grader, also on the SLT.
Hi, I'm Maggie Sandor. I'm the recording secretary.
I'm Heather Hawley. I'm the corresponding secretary.
And that's the entire executive board. As most of them has said, we're also on the SLT team, which is myself, Mr. Jones, Miss Brown, and Miss Attwood. We also have two additional people who are on that are not part of the executive board, which is Miss Alston and Miss Jones. By the one of you on, would you like to speak? All right. On Title I team, we have Miss Filbert as well as Miss Jones again. So that is the 2021-22 PTA team members. Moving on. All right, we're going to just skip the reading of the minutes only because we have our amazing principal who has some important information to put out there that we felt is quite interesting. And of course, as always, he's a very busy gentleman. I can attest that I've been to several meetings with him this week. It feels like I haven't seen you in years. So please go on with the information that you have, and thank you.
Hi, thank you, Mrs. Scott. Mrs. Scott is referring to a meeting we had with the District 21 high school principals and both Assembly Member Frontis and Council Member Kagan on Tuesday morning. And I was very, very grateful that Mrs. Scott was able to attend the meeting because the superintendent has this vision of all the stakeholders in the community coming together to share solutions, to share concerns, and that way the schools benefit, the community benefits, and our students certainly benefit. One of the things, what I really wanted to talk with the entire PTA tonight is school safety. If you know, I think you'd have to be hiding under a rock not to be concerned about, you know, some of the news that we're reading about, you know, violence on the subway and violence outside of schools. Just about a week ago, there's this upsetting incident where two students slashed each other with box cutters outside of Fort Hamilton High School. The following day, the mobile scanning unit went there and 14 weapons were recovered. So it seems to show that some students, just as a matter of course, you know, bring weapons, and we're not talking guns here, but we are talking about box cutters, knives, which can certainly do a lot of damage. There was also an unfortunate incident outside of John Adams High School just the other day, and it's scary. It's scary being a parent, and it's you know, you want to send your child to a safe place. And so I wanted to talk about that a little. First of all, we have scanning, and you know, scanning is sometimes popular, sometimes isn't. About 2 or 3 years ago, Mayor de Blasio and Chancellor Ferrigno were really pushing to have scanning taken out of school buildings. Right now, people are in favor of it. And I think scanning is like almost anything else. If you do it efficiently, if you do it with fidelity, if you take it seriously, if you make sure your students don't have to wait outside in the cold weather or the rain or something, it's a wonderful thing. And it doesn't have to be invasive and dehumanizing. If it's done poorly, yes, it's sometimes students have to wait outside and it can be invasive. The Department of Education for a long time was not buying any new scanning equipment. And that sometimes made for some difficult mornings for us if some of the equipment wasn't working, where we'd only have, say, one scanner open or something. But fortunately, in today's climate, scanning is considered important. And so some of the concerns about having enough equipment have gone away. I want to share 2 slides and discuss it a little bit, because Lincoln has gotten safer. And on the return from the pandemic, where we were very worried, because basically for 2 years, students haven't been with each other. They haven't had the socialization. They haven't had the annoyances that we get used to when we're with a large group. But our students have been extraordinary, and they have been better behaved. They have used their words as opposed to their fists in all kinds of incidents. And I wanted to compare it specifically to 2019 to 2020. Now, remember the pandemic, we had to shut down in the middle of March 2 years ago. But all we are comparing is September up till March 1st. And where you're first looking, the blue is 2019, 2020. The purple, I think that's purple, is this year, right? 2021 to 2022. Level 1 and 2 offenses in the discipline code are really quality of life offenses. They're you know, someone speaking inappropriate, someone sassing somebody else. And you can see that these incidents have gone down, and they've gone down considerably, right? They've gone from, I think that's 1/3, right? Mr. Capiso, right? 12 and 12 make 24, and another 12 make 36. So they've gone down by 1/3. If you, thank you, Mr. Capiso. I enjoy the validation. If you look at level 3 can be things like horseplay and goofing off. That's also gone down. The serious offenses, levels 4, level 5, this could be a weapon, this could be a fight, this could be some kind of a extreme bullying response with totally inappropriate video or fists or something. And that has also gone down. It's gone down from 51, and that was a good year, to 35. So all in all, in terms of total disciplinary incidents, Lincoln is safer and safer. And I know it's we always compare, and I don't want to crow too much about how good Lincoln is compared with other schools, but not every school has had this same result with coming back from the pandemic. Can we show the next slide, please? These are suspensions, and we have 2 kinds of suspensions: principal suspensions and superintendent suspensions. All of them are initiated at the school. The superintendent suspensions are for usually weapons brought into scanning, even though they can be for other things. This year, all 6 of them have been weapons, and I'll talk about that in a little while. The principal's suspensions, there is a little bit of discretion there, and we have moved more, according to the Department of Education, towards a restorative position. And that means we are doing fewer suspenses. So it's not an exact honest drop from 54 to 28 in terms of the incidents. In terms of the incidents, you're much better off looking at that previous thing of level 1 and 2 and level 3 incidents. So I want to make it clear that there has been a change in policy, but this policy has been so positive. We have a social worker, Miss Robert, who only works in the dean's office. And that way, as soon as there is a discipline problem, it is addressed as a social emotional problem. Very, very few students, very few people just want to misbehave. There's almost always a reason, and the reason might have to do with what's going on at home, what's going on in your personal life, which friend has told you, I'm no longer your friend or something. And also what is going on with school, the frustration sometimes of having trouble at school. With our social worker, we immediately can deal with solving the problem as opposed to the punishment. So we are embracing restorative justice. We are embracing mediation when students have a disagreement, and that has really helped. Now, the one little hiccup, you'll see that the superintendent suspensions have actually gone up. We've gone from 4 to 6, and I have trouble explaining that because for some reason, I guess back in 2019, 2020, we had fewer weapons coming in. But if you break that down, and these all 6 are weapons that came into scanning. 3 were boys, 3 were girls. 5 of those students said, and their parents corroborated this, said that this was because they were nervous about traveling to and from school, from their neighborhood to school. 2 of them were incidents of mace or pepper spray. And one was an incidence of this little thing that I think it's called, I wrote it down, someone bear with me, kubator or kubaton. It's a thing that girls sometimes favor for self-defense. Once again, something that you would be carrying if you're afraid that you might be assaulted. So, well, the 6, obviously, what students tried to bring into Lincoln, it's also reflective of the concern in our city about safety and how concerned everyone is when they sometimes leave their house and it's dark, or they come home in the dark, or they travel on the trains and they've just read some account of somebody pushing somebody else on the tracks or attacking somebody with a hammer. So I wanted to share those specific numbers with all of you, and this is largely because at the school leadership team, I said that things are a lot better, and Ms. Attwood, quite appropriately so, asked for some clarity on exactly how they were better. So thank you, Mrs. Attwood, for forcing me to come up with the true numbers.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hoogaboom. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? Bring it forth now because he will be dropping off in a few minutes. Ms. Attwood, I know you have questions.
I'm always very happy with Mr. Hoogaboom's reports, always full of information. Now, the second part of my question was about how do we compare to other schools in the district or in Brooklyn or in the city? I'm not sure if we have that information.
No, that's really largely anecdotal, but and I get my information where I think most of you get the information, which is really from Citizens App or the New York Post or something else. But just this week there was this this is a disturbing video from Port Richmond High School where a student in a very playful way jumped on another student's back, and then his book bag wasn't securely closed at the top, and a weapon, a pistol, slid out of his book bag onto the floor. The school cameras captured him grabbing the pistol and running out of the building. And unfortunately, there's no way of knowing, was that a fake gun? Was it a BB gun? Was it an actual firearm? We are very fortunate that things like that have not happened at Lincoln.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Any expulsions?
Expulsions of students or teachers?
Actually, both. No, just students.
Oh, I wish. Look, there are some students at our school who are not doing well at all and who really need another environment. And in those cases, what we do is we have meetings with the parents and we try to find a setting for the student that really, truly will help the student do better. The days when you could stand at the door and say, "You're not coming in here, I don't care where you go," are gone. And to be quite honest, appropriately so, because certain schools abused that ability, and it really did not serve the students or the community or the city very well. And so there are some students, Mrs. Brown, that we are diligently working to find another setting for, and sometimes it is difficult because you do have to have the parents agree.
Thank you. I understand that. Thank you.
Ms. Atwood, there's a question in the chat. May you please read it?
Of course. There's a parent who asks, in the cases with the pepper spray, do the students get to leave it anywhere or with anyone and receive it back at the end of the day so they can travel back and forth with it for protection?
No, we're not allowed to do that. We have to we have to confiscate it, and we cannot hand it back to a parent. We had an incident at the beginning of the year where a student brought in a grooming implement that you groom your eyebrows with, but it's a tiny little razor blade is attached to it. But as we know, when you buy one of these disposable razors or some thing to groom your eyebrows, it's not like the old-fashioned double-edged or single-edged razor. It's almost impossible to cut yourself with it. In this case, we actually gave it back to the parent, and the borough safety director reprimanded us for doing that. So they're very strict about what can be returned. And this takes us back to the days when cell phones were banned in the Bloomberg administration. The local bodegas would store the cell phone for $1 or so because it's a real concern, and it's very upsetting. But the Department of Education is very clear that we have to confiscate this, and we cannot return these items.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Oh, there's an extra question in the chat. Any word on regents this year?
They are telling us to order the regents, and the number of exams that we need. So it seems as if the implications seem to be that they're going ahead on with the regents exam. Only I'm very unsure about that, myself, but that's my personal reading, and I might very well be wrong because everything seems to be going ahead to having the regents in June.
I actually have a question. You briefly mentioned it during our SLT meeting, but I want to be able to have everyone else hear it. It's about the vaccination requirement for prom and possibly graduation. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, I could elaborate more effectively if I remembered what was said. You have to help me, Mrs. Scott.
The question was, I've been seeing some articles that stated that COVID vaccinations will be proof of vaccination, I'm sorry, will be required at prom and possibly at graduation. I wanted to know if that is definitely going to occur, or is that in a conversation through the DOE?
Well, my understanding is that for the prom, yes, we are requiring that all students, all participants be vaccinated. Now, graduation, I think, is another question, because it is done at the Ford Amphitheater in Coney Island, and they make their rules. And so I think in that case, it will be, whatever rules they make, which might have to do with the city. And of course, my understanding is that the vaccination requirement for indoor dining has been lifted. So it's very, very hard to predict what will happen in June.
So at present point, it will be required, and more information forthcoming based on how close we get.
I would even
As we
back
get
off
closer,
more.
sorry.
At present point, for the for graduation, I just don't know. And so I'll make sure that I'll get back to you. If not Friday, tomorrow afternoon, Monday, so you can share this with the PTA.
How about by Monday? Only because I know you're going to be so busy with parent teachers conference. I'm not going to put that burden on you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And there was also a question about whether or not a booster would be required. So I guess that would be follow-up for next week.
Yes, it would be. As somebody who diligently was vaccinated and got a booster and still got COVID at the beginning of January, I maybe I should have gotten a second booster. But obviously it's a very, the Omicron variant was extremely virulent, and a lot of people got it.
Okay, thank you. Just one thing, I do have one parent that mentioned how happy they are the school has metal detectors, and it's prevented a lot of violent encounters because of this. So I actually have to agree with that.
Well, yeah, and I really appreciate that, because way back when we originally got metal detectors, I think it was 2005. I thought it was a mistake, and have I changed my mind? I am very, very happy that it just makes all of us feel safer. It makes our students feel safer, and you can't learn if you don't feel safe. You can't learn if you don't feel comfortable. So I'm very happy to have them.
There's a different question, like
We'll
completely
hold
different
that one.
subject. Do you
That's for
want
Mr.
to hold that?
Yes, because that's for Mr. Briel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the principal? He'll be stepping off, going once, going twice. You won the rest of the evening off, Mr. Hoogaboom.
Okay, thank you so much. Wonderful to
thank
meet
you
with
for
all
your
of
time.
you. Okay, have a great evening, everyone.
You too, thank you. All right, thank you. And don't worry, if anyone has any other questions strictly for the principal, please put it in chat or email Abraham Lincoln's PTA email, and we will surely pass it through to him and get answers. Most of the time, the answers are posted on our Facebook account. So later on, we'll be able to provide you that information of how to get onto our Facebook page. Ms. Meadows, in reference to that question that you have, once we get down to Teacher's Corner and Mr. Capizzo speaks, we'll also have Mr. Briel talk as well about that program. All right, reading of the minutes.
Thank you.
No problem. Reading of the minutes, please.
Oops, sorry about that. So the minutes from February 17th, 2022 are posted on the school's website if you'd like the full details. I'm just going to run through quickly the key points of that meeting. We had Mr. Hoogenboom address the PTA. He talked about how COVID is lessening, as well as the first open school night in person. The SAT day he discussed, and that the other students who weren't testing would have a remote day. And he talked about the celebration of the top 100 ninth grade students with some gift bags, trying to celebrate success of all kinds. He answered questions about the courtroom classroom, about community service of our students in the community, about college prep for 10th and 11th graders. And someone asked a question about how many students have received scholarships. Someone asked a question about Black History Month. The principal had said something about Black History Month is American History Month, and the principal explained what he had meant by that. Let's see, there was a question about the attendance and incentive and whether it was started. It was started in February and it's ongoing. There was, somebody mentioned the awards boards in the school needing to be updated and the school store items needing to be refreshed, as well as questions about summer programs. We went on to have Ms. Jabril talk about some summer opportunities for both seniors as well as a summer job fair. There was 4 giveaways at the February meeting. The treasurer's report discussed the proceeds from the world's finest chocolate sale proceeds. The secretary's report was discussing the bylaws committee and the ongoing work of that bylaws committee. The attendance committee and fundraising committee submitted updates. The Title I committee talked about the upcoming financial literacy workshop that was held. And there was a call for volunteers for the nomination committee to gather candidates for the upcoming PTA executive board election, which will be held at our May meeting. Teachers Corner, Mr. Capizzo updates the PTA with what's going on in the school, including winter break, parent teacher conferences, Linkard advisory, question about the regions in June, which the principal also addressed tonight, and discussed the regents tutoring sessions that are going to be available, as well as senior dues. And that was pretty much it. We reviewed the school calendar, contact tree, and the DOE calendar as well. And those are the highlights of the February 22 meeting minutes. Can someone please propose that we adopt these minutes?
Yeah, I motion we adopt these minutes.
Hold on. Does anybody have any questions about the minutes from last month? Okay, Ms. Attwood?
Yes, I wanted to motion that we accept the minutes that Ms. Sandor presented. If someone seconds. Oh,
We have
Ms.
someone who
Tiffany
seconded in the
Malcousu
chat.
seconded in the chat.
Mhm.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Ooh, my favorite part. We have the St. Patrick's Day trivia giveaway. Who are going to be the lucky winners? Ms. Brown? Uh-oh, did we lose? There she goes.
I am like going upstairs. Hello, good evening. Can you give me 2 minutes?
Sure, we'll move on to the next slide. Let me know when you're ready.
Thank you.
All right, next slide, please. Keep going. Okay, perfect. Treasury report.
All right. So a somewhat less active month for the treasurer's report. We did receive $110 in donations, and we did have one expense. There was an issue with one of the checks that we received from World's Finest, and we've engaged World's Finest and are hoping to get that bank fee withdrawn. But in the interest of transparency, accuracy, and honesty, there is a $30 fee that they charge us. We believe that that's incorrect, but there it is. So our starting balance, $1,497.72. Our ending balance, $1,577.72. Other updates, though, you'll notice that there is no vaccine bonus received as of yet. It's one of the reasons why I haven't promised a particular dollar sign or day, because we just don't know. And we check our bank balance every day because the funds are supposed to come in through automatic transactions. unfortunately, that has not happened. And in the interest of financial prudence, we don't count our chickens before they've hatched, and that those vaccine funds are not here yet, so they're not included just yet.
All right, before we go back to Ms. Brown, does anybody have any questions, concerns about the Treasury report?
When we talk in the attendance committee, we'll talk about some other activities that are being planned, but for right now, in terms of the actual funds we spent, this reflects actual funds at this point. So, yeah.
Okay, excellent. We're going to go back to the slide for Ms. Brown. And in the meantime, we have a couple of items in the chat. One, again, is the sign-in sheet. This is the same sign-in sheet that if we were meeting in person, you would annotate information of who you are, who your child was. This way we can build up our email blasts. And then we also have our Cheddar Up information for PTA dues and donations. All right, Ms. Brown.
Okay, hi everyone. Sorry about that. I'm connecting. So we have
recording in progress.
All right, there we go. Sorry about that. I was coming off my phone. So hi everyone. Sorry. So we have St. Patrick's Day trivia giveaway. We thought that would be interesting as opposed to just pulling a number, you know, off the wheel. So what we would like for everyone to do, if you want to participate, when the question is, there's 4 gifts and 1 bonus. So when the there's a question that's going to be asked, you have to put your answer in the chat. The first person within the 30 seconds that's allotted puts the correct answer. That will be the winner of the gift. So the baskets is like a St. Patrick's Day basket. So bucket, not baskets. So we have that, and the last one, the bonus one, you'll see when we get to that slide. So you just gotta be able to guess and answer the questions correctly. So I hope you enjoy the trivia when we get to the questions.
All right, just want to make sure we're not doing any numbers at this time, correct?
No numbers. The answer,
Perfect.
participants will have to put it in chat this time.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks.
And you'll be monitoring the chat when we get to that time.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. All right, thank you. Anybody have questions about this before we move on?
And then I'm sorry, so the questions are all related to St. Patrick's Day. I should say that. So sorry.
And will we be having our first set of questions right before the bylaws? Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, excellent. I just want to make sure you weren't going to ask questions right now.
Nope. Not
Okay.
All
All right.
Thank you.
Moving on. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Teachers Corner. Normally we have this further down on our deck slide, but because it's a busy week for our Lincoln somebody, we've decided to bring it up and have him talk. He will, Mr. Capizzo, and as well as Mr. Brill will stay on as long as they can. But they want to be able to start setting up for tomorrow to get with us and anyone that wants to speak with them tomorrow for their students. So Mr. Capizzo, please go right ahead. And Ms. Meadows, I have not forgotten about that question. As soon as Mr. Capizzo is done, again, I will have Mr. Brill pop up.
All right, hi everybody. Good to see everyone again. So just giving you a quick heads up. Of course, this week is Parent-Teacher Conference Week. So all market period 1 grades have been sent out. So everyone knows how they did for the first marking period. Also, teachers are probably also notifying the parents if they're scheduling their conferences about how they did in the full semester as well. Also, just to give everyone a quick little heads up. So the second marking period right now is going to be ending the day before we go on break, which is April 14th. So the marking period will end on that day. So one of the things that I mentioned at the last meeting that we're doing is we're going to be kind of like doing like a progress report check-in with parents. That the name of that is going to be called the course concern parent notification. So by April 1st, which is kind of like the halfway point of the second market period, parents should be notified about their child's progress and you know, what they need to do to fix their grade. Once that is you know, set up, then we're going to have it go right into the second market, you know, getting finished up with the second marking period. Also, then we're going to we go right into April break, and then we go right in from April break into the third marking period. And I believe the third marking period goes until like the beginning of June. And then there's like 2-week grace period where we get the final grades all done as well. So there's another time again where we're doing our course concern parent notification as well. So kind of like a progress report check-in, if that makes sense, is what teachers should be notified. And these are only going to be sent out to like parents who are like, hey, your child needs to start changing the grades around for the marking period. As far as what we got going on right now, you're probably seeing that a lot of our sports are finishing up. We're getting into now baseball season and softball season, so that's going to be starting up soon. Anyone that's interested in watching some of those games, we'll be streaming them live on Lincoln Media, our YouTube page. So it'd be a great little way to get everyone interested in the spring sports. And as far as regions, as Mr. Hugenboom says, right now we are planning that it is going to happen. So what we have done so far is that algebra 9th graders and 10th graders, anyone who has to take the regions, will be doing the Saturday program for tutoring. That is open right now. There's still like a couple of seats left. So if you are interested, see myself in room 114 to get a sign in. Also, this weekend is the starting weekend for ENL tutoring. So any students who are in the ENL program, there is going to be ENL tutoring for the major subjects as well. So that's another piece. I believe the other departments like living environment and history will be doing stuff, and English will be doing stuff after April break. So that's when you can join like those programs for that. Also, a quick announcement about this Wednesday, March 25th, is PSAT SAT day. Okay, so what's going on that day is that a select number of 9th graders and all of the 10th grade will be taking the PSAT that day, and all of the 11th graders will be taking the SAT that day. They already have been notified. They've already been sent out their notifications earlier this week. It's not March 25th, my apology, March 23rd. I'm looking at May's calendar on accident, okay? SAT is, yes, SAT is mandatory for all juniors. It is mandatory for the 10th grade as well, because it's a good little indicator about how they would perform when the SAT happens in the next year. For the 9th graders who are not selected to take the PSAT, as well as the 12th graders, I know the 9th grade, that'll be a remote day for those students, okay? So they will have remote classes that day. And in 12th grade, I'm not sure if there's anything going on campus with them, but that is what this upcoming Wednesday, the 23rd is. And then other than that, I know there were some questions going off and I didn't want to stop what I was saying. So can anyone hit me with any questions? I'll go and just check the chat. Hang on one second. Okay.
There is one.
Sure.
Was this, I don't see Miss Attwood, I'm sorry. Was this marking period 3 weeks long with new teachers? And why was it so short?
You're talking about market period 1?
This current marking period, yeah. I believe so.
Well, so the marking period 1 was started on February 1st and had ended on March, I believe it was March 8th. The reason why it was so short was because we did have that February break in between. So that's why it felt like it was short, but we had to do that because the layout of the calendar, we really wanted to add in those extra 2 weeks at the end of the semester to work on any final grades. That's why we have a shorter first marking period, but by the end of the year, the students had those last 2 weeks before the Regents to be able to fix their final grades. Same way that we had did it last semester, where we gave like the final 2 to 3 weeks for students to fix their final grades, which a lot of students were able to do that. So we're doing that again. So that's why this first market period felt shorter, because we want to embed that time for students to make up their grades.
How can anyone,
Okay, Piso, there's some questions in the chat.
I know.
yes,
I
I
know.
was just,
One you
I was
answered
just reading
already,
it.
but
Oh,
SAT
hold on.
was mandatory, and then more information on PSAT.
Miss Attwood, scroll up a little bit further.
So there's
someone that's
SAT,
asking
PSAT,
about
March
sports.
23rd. Huh?
There's somebody that's asking about sports.
Yes.
Yeah, so if I see that someone said is interested in playing baseball, so who he would have to talk to is Mr. Cruz. He is the baseball coach. Mr. Cruz usually is he's one of the deans at our school, but he teaches first and second period in room 349. But you can usually find him in the dean's office. A great time to talk to him about possibly joining baseball. We've been more than happy to add him, and we could start him early, especially if he's a freshman, and we can build him up for the next 4 years. Okay, next, SAT. Yes, it is the 23rd.
I need you to
SAT.
slow down, Mr. Capizzo, because
Sure.
people are not catching what you're saying. And
Sorry.
there are 2 people who have their hands raised, but I'm just waiting until you're done with the chat.
Okay, all right, SAT. Yes, the SAT is mandatory. Okay, more information on the PSAT. It's the pre-SAT, those specific, so they're taking an SAT style exam, and those grades are a starting indicator for what their grades can be when they do take it in the 11th grade. So that's when we could start figuring out how we get them ready for the actual SAT. So that's why we do the PSAT. And the PSAT, as I said, is given to all 10th graders and selected 9th graders. Okay, can you please repeat about the sign up for algebra tutoring? Yes, algebra tutoring is on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. It'll be in room 114. We have a few spots left. If anyone is interested in joining this program, you could come by my room. My classroom is in room 114 to pick up a sign-in sheet. So then you could definitely be able to come. I only have 34 seats, and right now I'm at about 28. So I'm running a little low, okay? And some students sign up and then they don't show up. So I want to make sure that if it is going to be consistent, please make sure if you're signing up, I would see you every week, okay? We are doing this thing where if you come to all of our sessions, you get a free graphing calculator at the end of it. Granted, right now we are into our 3rd week of the program, so I would have to talk to my boss to make sure that that could be allowed. But the more the merrier. I want students to come to get ready for the algebra Regents. Okay, can coaches make it mandatory for players to have a certain grade average in order to participate? There is a requirement for playing sports. One of the requirements is you have to have at least a 90% attendance and that you have passed all of your classes. I know that that is one of the requirements. It goes by coach, and usually all coaches follow that rule. But more questions about that, that would have to be directed to Mr. O'Connor, or not Mr. O'Connor, excuse me, Miss Ebed, who runs the sports program at Lincoln. Okay, Michelle Lawton, I'll take your question.
Hi, good night, everyone.
Good night.
So regarding the ninth graders that's taking the PSAT, you said on the 23rd, they didn't have a remote day. Is that the day they're scheduled to take the test?
Yes, so that's the day that the whole school is doing the SAT day. So if your child was one of the selected students to take the PSAT, then they would come to school that day for taking the PSAT. But if they weren't selected, then that day is a remote day for your child.
Okay, and the other question is there any prepping for that in the meantime that they could do? Do you have any recommendation?
So my honest opinion is actually, I would say just go into it just to see what it's like. You don't really need to prepare for it. You don't need to prepare for it per se, because usually when the SAT starts getting like focused, I would say, is when it's like 10th grade and 11th grade. 11th grade more specifically, because that's when we start doing the classes. So I would say no prep, just go into it with like an understanding that it's just a pre, so they get a little bit of an idea. I would also say it's a good chance for them to, get back to normalcy of what a college, a state exam, not a state exam, but a United States exam, as strict as the PSAT or SAT is like. It'll be good for them to get a little indicator of the expectations when they take that type of test.
Thank you.
I'm just going to respond to the chat before I take Tiffany's question. I do not know how the students were selected for the test, unfortunately. Just wanted to let you know about that. I'm not 100% certain. I actually found out today that some ninth graders were taking it, so I was surprised myself. But I don't know how they were selected. I assume they must have been selected because they must be in some program in our school that's a focus on like one of our certain level. I'm not sure. Yes, can you send me the email of that parent, and I can forward them a copy of the sign-in sheet, which then they can print out and have it signed and bring it in for me. Okay. And worst comes to worst, if the parent also wants to, they could send their child in on Saturday, and I can give them the sheet when they first come in, and then they can get it signed. So that could be another idea too. Okay. Miss Gaskins, are you saying the PSAT is not mandatory for ninth grade? If that was your question, no, it's not mandatory for ninth grade. Okay, it's not a mandatory thing for ninth grade. No, it's the PSAT would be for 10th, and the SAT 100%. You need to take the SAT to get into college. They need to see your scores. All right, and Tiffany, go ahead.
Yes, I'm very patient.
Sorry.
It's okay. So my question is, and I am going back, and I'm sorry, for the 3-week marking period, my son is a ninth grader, and the issue that had him worried was because he didn't have all the same teachers that he had from September.
Mm-hmm.
He had new teachers assessing him, and they had 3 weeks to do it. So
Okay.
he was very concerned, which made sense to me as well. So I
Right.
did all my parent-teacher conferences yesterday, and they all said the same thing, the new teachers. They felt like they didn't have enough time to fairly assess him.
Right.
And so going forward, is it possible for it not to be a new set of teachers at that 3-week mark?
Right. So my first comment would be, it's unfortunate that whenever we have a new semester, there is always a shuffling of classes. Even though he went from fall to spring, you'd be like, oh, he should just follow through. There's always a change in someone's program. where maybe they don't want to do like the media program now, but they want to do photography. So because of that, they need to switch it around where now they get new teachers. I want to follow up though, that even though the grade for the first marking period is listed there, don't look at that as the indicator for the final grade, because what goes on the student's transcript at the end of the year is their final grade. So like, to give you an example, if a child has an 80, but then more likely near the end of the year, their market period grades 2 and 3 are in the 90s, you could guarantee yourself that we're going to make sure that that grade is a 90. And this teacher should keep in mind, because of the shortened marking period, those adjustments. And I'll say too, as a
in the perfect world, Mr. Caviezel, in the perfect world, that would be great. But okay, thank you. I get it.
Yeah, I'm trying my best. Yeah, I know it's a little frustrating, because it's like, you know, because it's like you want there to be consistency, and it's just unfortunate that, you know, we have program changes, and not just the program changes, but the movement, you know, we fell right into the market period was so quick. And I as a teacher, I say that too, it was a little tricky too, to you know, get all the data in as much as you can to have an accurate grade. But that's why we started that program at the end of the year to do the fixes of the final grades, because that really will then give like, okay, like I did a lot of grades adjustments myself in the fall semester, because students, you know, maybe they were great in the first, but they struggled in the second and third, and then the final piece was the final adjustment. So hopefully this is you know, this could be a thing that Lincoln does constantly, where we're able to like focus in those last couple of weeks to make the fixes for final grades. All right, Ms. Scott, before I get my head shut off, is anything else?
No, I thank you. So wait, I think there's a message just popped up.
So someone said they like to join the algebra prep as well. So you know what I'll do is I will send a copy of the printout sheet. I'll send it to you guys. Okay. I'll take care. I'll do it now. And then
Can you also post your email address?
Yeah, sure. I'll post my email address. Actually, no, let me do that better. Okay. If anyone wants a copy, just please. All right. Thank you, Tiffany. Yes. So anyone that wants to shoot me a message on the program itself, okay, I can definitely send out the papers, and I'll be able to help anyone. Like I said, the more the merrier Saturday. Okay, I'm having right now 25 consistent students show up the last 2 weeks, which everyone is shocked that I even get that much kids on a Saturday. So I would take more. All right. So, yep. All right.
Thank
Ms. Scott,
you.
am I good?
You're good unless other questions pop up. I know that you're good. You're very busy tonight and tomorrow. So if you can just stay on and maybe look at chat if there's any questions, but I'll understand if you have to step off. We'll hold on.
Yeah, what
to
I'll
the
do, I'll
questions.
stay on until you get to the bylaws, and then I'll step away. How's that sound?
That's fine. I
Okay.
appreciate your time.
No problem.
Thank you. And as always, you're always consistent on showing up. So I always appreciate that.
Well, I get the emails and I just sign
Exactly.
them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to Ms. Jabril. And again, if anyone has any more questions pertaining to what was just discussed, continue posting it in the chat. If it's specifically to what Mr. Capizzo wrote and Ms. Jabril can't answer, we'll definitely get those forwarded and they will be answered and posted on the Facebook account. Ms. Jabril, are you still on by chance?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everybody.
Hey, so real quick before you go on to anything, there was a parent, and I just found the question. They said Lincoln students are eligible to automatically qualify for SYEP this year with a certain provider. Do you know what jobs will be available for the students at the school? Can you discuss again very briefly about SYEP and then answer this parent's question?
So SYEP is a summer youth program that the city is providing. The students who are eligible for automatic enrollments are special ed education, special ed students, and also students who are in special programs such as photography, medical, vet science. Those students are receiving reserved chairs. I will have to follow up with Mr. Hoffman if there's any other requirements that would automatically enroll those students, and I will provide you with that information alongside with how to apply to what summer youth program. Hope that answered the question.
Well, I have received information from CareerReady with SYEP, and they said any Lincoln students automatically qualify. They don't have to be part of the lottery.
I would have to follow up with Mr. Hoffman because then probably they changed it. The last time we spoke was in February or January. They said they had to be in a special program, but that's good news. Then everybody qualifies.
Yeah, because they sent me, it was like maybe about 20 programs, different providers, and they listed all the schools underneath each provider that they're working with. And they said that you automatically qualify if you go to that particular school, if you submit the application by the due date. So I don't know. That's what I was told.
So Ms. Meadows, I'm just agreeing with you. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, because any child that's over the age of 14 that has like a social security card, they absolutely can sign up for SYEP. You can call 311 or you can go to the .gov website.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I will follow up with Mr. Hoffman and get back to your question, and I would provide a list with four providers. I wasn't aware of the new update that every child is eligible. I know every child is eligible, and I know I will find the link for students who don't have social security card. They can get like a working permit to work with summer youth program. I'll also share that link. But I'll check with Mr. Hoffman and I will email the PTA the updates on the providers information.
And for anyone that doesn't have the information on how to sign up, would you be able to provide that as well in the chat?
Yeah, I can provide the link because it's on our newsletter. I can just copy paste the link right now. 1 second.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Do you have any, would you like to discuss any other details? Anything upcoming?
Yes, I'd like to discuss our bell tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a special bell. We're only doing periods 1 to 5. If your child attends after 5th period, they have to come to school around 10 to 10:30. And after they scan, they go to cafeteria to get, their attendance taken, and then they can go home. And all students that are coming to school tomorrow will receive a special gift at scanning. It's also on our website.
All right. Thank you very much. I know there's a lot going on for you as well. If you have to drop off, I completely understand. But if you could stay on, I would greatly appreciate it. But again, I understand about how busy you guys are. So thank you for your time. If there's no further questions for Mr. Brill, Mr. Capizzo, we'll move on. Secretary report. Awesome. This is what we've all been waiting for. Just before we do that, Ms. Brown, do we want to do a teaser question or move on?
I'm open to that.
All right, I think we should. It's been a pretty long evening so far, so giving Ms. Hawley just a few more moments. Please go ahead with the the giveaway. If you could just explain it briefly one more time, because there was 1 or 2 people that were disappointed they they had dropped off and didn't hear the whole thing. So
All right, so this is the St. Patrick's Day trivia giveaway. It's a St. Patty's bucket of items for you on behalf of the PTA. So what happened, normally we try to probably have, put your name in a wheel, but this time we changed it and it was agreed that we would just have you to participate. When you hear the question, you can't answer the question before the question is stated. You can't say it out loud. You will put your response to the question in the chat. And the first correct answer within the 30 seconds allotted to answer wins a basket. There's 4 baskets to give away, and then there's one bonus at the end. I won't tell you what that's about yet. Try to keep you interested. So whenever we're ready, let's go, Ms. Scott. And it's all related to St. Patrick's Day. Sorry. So we're
it's
trying
all
to
yours.
see if your parents have your facts. Okay, so the first question is, so it's all of a who, what, why, a who, what, when, why, and how question. So the who, was, and I'll let you know when I'm finished the question, I'll say go to make it more simple. So don't put a response in the chat until you hear the word go, please. So who was St. Patrick? Tell us his name at birth. Go. St. Patrick's name at birth. What was St. Patrick's name at birth? That's the 30 seconds. Stop. The first answer I see that is correct is Miss Meadows. Hold on one second. Miss Meadows was correct. That's the first answer, Marwin Sakat. So congratulations, Miss Meadows, on the first answer to the question.
Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Scott, let me know when you're ready for the second question after we move down.
Yeah, just give me one moment. As usual, the gifts are already at the school this evening. I will email you as well as Mr. Brill and Mr. Robinson so that we can make coordination for you or your child to pick up these items. And they're absolutely gorgeous. Great job, team. All right, let's do one more question and then we'll go on to the bylaws. And we have more giveaways, so don't suddenly get bored because of this. Oh, Mr. Capizzo, we will miss you. Thank you. All right, one more question and then we'll be moving on.
Okay, again, I'll just repeat. So once I say the question, then I'll say go. Everyone has 30 seconds to type their answer in the chat if you choose to participate.
Quick question, hold on. If you already won, are you allowed to do it again?
We have a pretty decent amount of parents, so maybe once. If you win, just hopefully let somebody else win.
Excellent, thank you. Go on.
Thank you for that. So the what? What is the national flower emblem of Ireland? Go. And I'll stop. Correct answer is shamrock, and that is Miss Tiffany Malcousu. Congratulations. Miss Scott, it's all yours.
I'm sorry, I'm taking notes of things. Did you explain what's in each of these little gift baskets? So this way people will stay on and not get bored of the bylaws?
No, it's I didn't explain. So it's your St. Patty's Day party. I don't want to say party basket, but your gift basket. So it's all of St. Patty's Day items. They're different. Some are, I think it's cute to not, since we did the surprise gifts last time, I was trying to like just make it more of a, just be, and to anticipate what it is. It's St. Patrick's Day related. Like next month would be a surprise as well. So.
Sorry about that. Somebody was walking by as it went off.
Okay.
Just real quick, because somebody actually sent it to me directly, but I think everyone would love to hear it. And thank you. Thank you, Miss Robinson. Symbols of Ireland are marks, images, or objects that represent Ireland. Because Ireland was not partitioned until 1922. Many of the symbols of Ireland predate the division into Southern Ireland and Northern Ireland. Good information.
Interesting.
So thank you again, Ms. Robinson, for sharing that information.
Fun fact.
Yes, a fun fact.
Definitely.
That's fine. It's okay. All right. We're gonna move on now to the highlight of this evening. Miss Hawley, thank you so much. Please discuss what you guys have been doing, and congratulations to your team. I know it was interesting and you got thrown into it, but I think you've done a wonderful job as well as your team. So have at it.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you want me to just walk through all the changes?
Yes, please.
By sharing, do you want me to share my screen, or can Mr. Sandor maybe pull up the document?
Hold on. Yeah, I've made you as co-host.
Okay.
You should be able to share the screen.
All right.
Just real quick, I know that there is another form that you guys will be asking people to fill out. Are you going to post it now and explain it to them, or later?
I think it's, well, I took away the slide, so I don't have, because Mr. Sandor was sharing the slide with the form, but it's basically just a voting form. I believe you just put your name.
Perfect. There we go.
And if you agree or not.
It's already in the chat. Thank you,
Okay.
Ms. Sandor. That's what I was looking for.
Thank you.
So I guess my question is, are they voting for each section, or when you're done, they're going to vote before we move on to the rest of the meeting?
I thought at the end, unless there was
Okay.
something that was really contentious, because otherwise we'll have to, do all the changes or whatever, but the changes are pretty standard, so I don't really see any sort of,
That's fine. Go to each
battles
one.
breaking out.
Give everyone about 30 seconds to ask any
All
questions
right.
if they have anything, and then move on to the next one. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you so
So,
much.
This was the first change we had to make, was in Article 3, Section C, about voting privileges. There was some extra text in this number 2, and we just removed it because it was no longer required. And then for number 3, we had to add this text per the A660 face guidelines that they sent out, and it just refers to, how you can elect officers at an in-person meeting or a virtual. You just cannot do it at a hybrid meeting if your organization uses hybrid meetings, which, as far as I know, we do not. So that's that one. And if you have any questions too, you can put them in the chat and somebody can just stop me, and I'll be happy to answer them. So the next changes were in the duties.
Just slow down your comments just a little
Okay.
bit. Thank you.
Sure. All right, so the next changes were to the duties of the various officers. The first one was the president. We had to add a bullet about our email address. The templates all said DOE email account, but the A660 was pretty clear that you can use an account that you previously established by the executive board. So the committee decided to leave the wording as PTA email account to cut down on confusion, because we have a Gmail account already set up. Let's see, we had to add this bullet. Oh, this bullet here, hold a quarterly meeting with the school principal, is actually not required any longer, but we thought as a committee that that was a good idea to maintain contact between the principal and the PTA, so we decided to leave it in. We had to add this section about debit card disbursement forms and be ready to supply required documentation to the bank. That was a A660 requirement. There was a lot of talk in the A660 in the face about you can now use debit cards, but there was no specification about who could have a debit card. So the committee decided that if the organization decided they wanted to have a debit card, then the president or co-presidents, depending on how many you had, would be responsible for holding the physical card. So those are all the changes with the president. In the vice president section, I took out or co-vice president because we only have one vice president. If we were ever to add a second one, then at the next bylaw change, you could add that back in. And we had to add this bullet B here as required by the A660.
Hold.
see-
There's
Okay.
yep, I was just gonna say there is a question, please. Ms. Malcousu?
Hi, I know I was a part of this and I
That's
don't
okay.
mean to be. So I'm looking at the part where it says Vice President 2A, Assistant President, Co-Presidents. So is the expectations to have two presidents? Because if we're not having co-vice presidents, I'm just looking at the verbiage.
Yeah, the way it was explained to me is that we wanted to keep it so that we would always have two presidents to split the duties.
Okay.
Sometimes you'll only get one president and sometimes you possibly will be lucky enough to get the two co-presidents. If you keep one or the other, then you'll have to constantly keep changing the bylaws. So it was, I had also spoken to the FACE committee and they said it's easier to just keep both. Great job, guys. I'm loving all the changes.
All right. There's no more questions.
Hold on, do you still have a question, Ms. Malcousu? Okay, because your hand is still raised. Thank you.
Okay. So the recording secretary, all we added was the required bullet of being responsible for maintaining the PTA email account. That was a required A660 change. And I think it's falling under recording secretary because that is the only required secretary. A corresponding secretary is extra, which we did add later, but as you could just remove the corresponding secretary, I think they want this bullet permanently there. So that's why it's under recording secretary and not corresponding secretary, even though it's the corresponding secretary's job. And then I also just had a question about, did we want to incorporate all amendments into the bylaws into the corresponding secretary or add it there also, or just leave it here for the same reason as you would always have a recording secretary. Go ahead, Ms. Scott.
Actually, I didn't catch that with the responsible for PTA email account. Is there any way that we can have it on both?
Yeah, I
Since
think it can be on both.
Yeah, since the correspondence secretary is extra, and then this way you're not having to change the bylaws each time. If we happen to have the correspondence secretary, then we keep it.
I'm just gonna add it right now. Okay.
And then can you
Um,
repeat your question, please? I had.
I
somebody
just
walking
wondered
by.
if we should also add incorporate all amendments into the bylaws under the or corresponding secretary as well, or just not worry about that.
I would as well. And then Miss Sandor has an inquiry.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I forgot to reply to your email about that
That's
very
okay.
topic. So sorry about that. But I do think it's good to have it in both places. Just as Ms. Scott said, when you don't have both secretaries, then at least all the duties are covered under the recording secretary. And then if you can split it among two people, great.
Sounds good.
We found in the past having just one secretary is quite painful, and they end up doing more than they realize. So the corresponding secretary, they end up being able to split up the work. So that's why it was important that we kept this position. Go on.
Okay, so we're to the treasurer or co-treasurer, just to allow for two treasurers. We had to add the C bullet point for the A660, and also this D1. This one was also we left here because the A660 wasn't clear about who got to set up the bank account. So we decided that before it was responsible, but this year it didn't really specify. So we changed it to maybe responsible so that, the president could do it, or however future boards wanted to work it out amongst themselves. Because this is also under the president section, I believe.
That's a good catch, and I agree it should be put on both, because we found out when we created our account, both of us should be there. It falls
Yes.
under the president's duties, but at least there's a partnership with the treasurer. So good catch.
I believe that was Miss Attwood's catch, so good job.
Thank you, Ms. Attwood.
And then the A660 required this bullet about having access to the PTA email account, so we added that in. So does anybody have any questions about the treasurer?
If there's some areas that don't make sense, it's okay to go and ask questions, and we can go back and explain it. So this is the time for us to go and make sure that everyone understands the bylaws. The bylaws is basically a living, breathing document of how we're supposed to run as a PTA, as a whole PTA. Okay, moving on.
All right, and so we added the corresponding secretary section. This wasn't in the bylaws last time because it's we just now have one, I guess. So we added all of these duties. These are just highlighted because I copy and pasted. So I did have a question if we needed to add a specific bullet about thanking donors, or if that should just fall under the generic, conduct correspondence of the PTA.
Maybe putting in an IE type of thing, thank yous.
Okay.
Or to include. Ms. Gaskins, I know that the PTA bylaws have been circled around at least twice or three times, Ms. Hawley.
I sent them with all the blasts, so I think that's 3. But they're
Okay.
also on the Lincoln website.
The draft or the current one?
Oh, the draft. No, yes, I sent the draft with the email blast.
Okay, the current one is on the PTA portal on Abraham Lincoln High School. This particular one that was drafted was sent out 3 times, and we'll be making a vote to keep the stuff. But yes, the bylaws will always be available.
Should I add,
Can't,
should I add some other duties here, like answering email,
if you want to.
etc.? I don't know. Okay.
There is
Yeah.
one other question,
Oh.
Ms. Meadows. Can you see the chat or do you want me to read it to you?
Oh, I can look at the chat.
Okay. Can you please make sure you read out the question?
Are there a certain amount of people that has to sign checks? If so, does that number need to be in the bylaws? There's a whole section on banking later, and I think that might be in there. I don't have
It
it
is.
all completely memorized, but I do think we do get to that section later.
Hold one, Ms. Sandor has a question,
Okay.
has a comment.
Oh, I was just going to reply to the previous discussion about whether the correspondence can just leave as correspondence, because I think that will
Okay.
evolve. But I do believe that the A660 does specify the number of check signatures that are required. So whether that is in our bylaws or not, we're bound by the A660 first.
Mhm. And I do think it's in the banking section. I know we talked about it during the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, that's my doorbell.
Hold one, do you see the
Sure.
comment from Ms. Malcousu?
Oh. Oh, yes, okay. That's a good way to phrase it.
Yeah, I was
I
just
like
looking
that.
at the verbiage because I know we were struggling with that when we started to do this.
Yeah.
So
just
thank
gonna-
you.
That's a good
notes.
one.
Yeah, we just want to, make it a little bit more formal.
Yes. Oops. There we go. I can't copy from the chat, so it's gonna take me a minute. Okay. All right, if there's no other comments, then I'll move on to the next section of changes. So under election of officers, we did add the words by the to March, monthly general meeting, just in hopes to give some leeway to establish the nominating committee a little earlier. But so that was that change. And then the next changes were to the nominating committee's duties. We basically, the A660 talked a lot about you had to allow for the distribution of candidate statements, and that wasn't in our bylaws previously. So we added the F here, that those seem to be the ways that applied to our school out of the list of suggestions that the A660 had. And then we also added the bullet about we needed to ensure that the candidates could address the membership prior to the voting.
Ms. Malcousu?
Sorry, I was still on mute. There's some, when it comes to any kind of marketing or flyers or anything that's sent home, should it be something that's approved to be sent home? Because we don't want to just, allow any candidate to send anything home with children.
I think that you can't send things home.
So it's to the parents' PTA newsletter. So, right, so anything that's going on the newsletter is going to have to be some kind of approval process.
Right.
It says all candidate statements must be appropriate.
Right.
Right. So that was my thought process as well.
So, I mean, we can expand that bylaw. I just didn't know how we needed to include all that, or if we would hope that the PTA, whoever's doing it, would just know not to allow anything horrible.
And of course, also keep in mind, anything going to the families has to go through the Mr. Brill.
Right,
But we can't just like send it directly unless it's our
Right, we-
email blast. But I do agree that maybe something needs to, you might want to just type that in now.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the appropriate approval, like those two words make a big difference.
Agreed.
do you want to just say approval of the nominating committee? Because they're the ones that are supposed to handle all of this, not
I would
the
say
board.
appropriate approval,
Okay,
only because that can stay a bit ambiguous so that you don't have to constantly keep changing the bylaws.
right. Okay,
You still have any questions? Okay.
okay, so basically in this expedited, all of this language was required by the A660. I just copy and pasted. And it didn't change much. I think what it added was this hybrid meetings are prohibited. Okay, if there's no questions about that.
Well,
Close.
just a few
Oh,
more moments
sorry.
to allow people to read it. And I'm sorry, are we able to also upload it onto the chat, or is it too large of a file?
I don't know.
I can try to find that, Miss Holly, so you can
Okay.
continue. I'll find it from the email blast.
Okay, yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Hold on, just go back one more. Keep going. Yep, stop right there. Just give them like 10 more seconds to read.
Okay, sorry.
All right, move on.
Okay. So now we're to the executive board. There are a few changes that needed to be made. In the meeting section, we had to update it to the new A660 template to include the meeting format, which was this: you have to vote, or the executive board must determine its capacity to host meetings using a particular format. So it's basically this last section. And then we also updated it because the old bylaws had the meetings on Tuesdays, but we're currently meeting on Wednesdays. So I changed that as well. So theoretically, the new executive board next year could decide they want to meet in person, and then they would have to update the bylaws to say that, because we are stating we're meeting virtually.
Please note it's very important that we get your input to approve or reject these bylaws. Otherwise, we won't be able to have, we won't be able to use these bylaws in for this year. Move on.
Okay, so the next change was to the quorum. The actual template the A660 sent out said the quorum should be 8. But that was really high because we don't even have 8 members. So I think they copy and pasted from the general meeting and just forgot to change it. The committee kind of agreed. So we settled on 3 members. I did look in the A660 for more information, and it just specifies that a quorum must be had. It doesn't state a number. So we just went with 3. So it was an odd number.
But we didn't want any ties. So we
Yes,
said
no
if
ties.
we, to break the tie, we'll keep an odd number.
Good call.
There was another section E in here, but nobody really understood what it meant. Ms. Sander confirmed it was an old face requirement. It's no longer there, so we just took it out. And then in this June transfer of records section, basically all the verbiage is the same, except they added a little sentence about email accounts and online banking as part of the documents that you have to transfer, or the records, I mean, that you have to transfer. So all this user IDs, passwords, debit card, email account, all of that. But the rest of the text is the same. Okay, if there's no questions, we'll move on to the general membership section that had some quick changes. The A660 was requiring that at the beginning of the school year, the executive board, in collaboration with the parent coordinator, survey the members to determine the time, day, location, and format that people would prefer for the monthly membership meetings. So the new board, or, you know, going forward, unless they change it next year, we'll need to coordinate with Mr. Brill and figure out how to survey the members.
Does anything have to be included? Because I know originally there were 2 sessions of meetings. One was an afternoon and one was an evening. Does that have to be identified in the bylaws? Because the afternoon session no longer takes place. Is that accurate?
Yeah, but that, yes, that's correct. But from the old bylaws, that wasn't in the old bylaws either. I think that was something the PTA, the board decided to do. But it wasn't specified in the old bylaws either. Let's see. So the only change in the section B was to add language about virtual meetings. And these bullet points were no longer in the bylaws, but we are in the new template, but we thought that they were helpful, so we just left them in.
Give us just about 30 more seconds to
Sure.
read.
Oh, I'm sorry. These are
No.
in the bylaws. I was talking about section 3. That was confusing. Okay, so these 3 bylaws are in the old bylaws, but we are updated by the A660 about virtual meeting. Section 3 is the one that we left in because we thought was helpful, but it's no longer in the template.
And I believe we put those that particular section in last year.
Yes.
Is that correct, Ms. Sander? I believe I am.
Yes,
That's-
that was the
yeah.
update from last year from
Last year when we found. yeah,
emergency.
okay,
Yes, definitely.
Great, excellent, thank you.
We just thought it had good information, so we just left it in.
All right, move on.
Here's the rest of that, section 3. It's kind of long.
Can you explain what it means to be open to the public? No,
Okay.
right there, state D. State
Oh,
law
D.
requires PA, PTA, general membership meetings to be open to the public. I just want to make sure that everyone clearly understands what we mean by public.
Let's see, we can look it up. Do you know, Miss Sander, off the top of your head? I didn't really read.
I do, but I want to make sure, yeah, I
Okay, do
don't
you want to
wanna.
explain? Because I just left this section. I didn't really go research
So
exactly what.
there's two
it
types of
means.
public. There's public as in Abraham Lincoln High School public, just those parents. And then there's public when we're in like the president SLT and the president council. Those are open public to all families that are in the high schools. That's what, or the
Okay.
committees outside, not the president. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Council members, they're allowed to go to those meetings if wanted to. So I want to make sure that that's clear.
So are we trying to identify that we're going to keep it for parent and guardians of Abraham Lincoln students? Or are we saying that it's going to be an open public forum?
Double check what it says in the A6. If we can go down to the A660 where it's referenced, just to double check exactly what's in there. Because I think that's important for families.
Be nice. if there
Because
was-
I just learned about that just a few months ago when they were deciding whether or not we had to go in person. And that's when I found out that it's a real state law, not a DOE law.
While you're scrolling through, I just want to reiterate from a legal point of view that yes, we cannot, PTAs cannot restrict parents of students from a school from attending a PTA meeting because of this open rule. I mean, it's not allowed. You can, the bylaws say that you can, have a waiting room to have everyone come in at the same time, and that's just orderly stuff, but you absolutely cannot have a PTA president or PTA anywhere say, well, I like this parent, I don't like that parent, this parent can vote, that parent can vote. That's absolutely not allowed.